The following video has been created without the use of AI. Please support your human content creators by liking the video and commenting something down below. Subscribing is optional. Now please, enjoy the show. The attack surprised you from behind. Not like in the state you were in, you could react fast enough to the creature's sounds. You are thrown to the ground, teeth sinking into your shoulder, creating a terrible creaking noise. And for a moment the thing pinning you down stopped moving. Its sickening breath huffing into your neck. And then it raised its body. Disappointed. You turned your head until you saw it. The thing had come out of the wall. Its body's front was covered by chitin plates that looked exactly like the wall from which it had emerged. A hole that was the shape of the thing was clearly visible from some place behind it. The creature had no arms as it stared down at you in pure rage, as it was thinking, making decisions in its head. And then it raised its foot and stomped. Over and over and over and over, your body breaking apart with every mighty stomp of its foot. The grotesque wall driver growled in a deep tone. It almost sounded like it was laughing at your misfortune. Broken, destroyed, your pieces were scattered across the floor. It kicked them, picking them up with its toes and throwing them around. It was angry that it wouldn't be able to feed, angry at you appearing in its hunting grounds. And then the monster returned to its hiding spot within the walls. From the bite alone, you could tell that it wanted to devour you, but upon realizing that endeavor was impossible, it aggressively tore you apart. It bitten into your hair and placed your head onto a cabinet. It wanted you to watch. The pain was indescribable, and the fact you wouldn't die just made it all the worse. Of course, no human could survive an encounter like this. No being survived being torn to shreds like this. But you were an exception. Z-1019, codename The Doll That Hates. Your document described the state you had been discovered in a warehouse by a redacted clothing company in New York. You are surrounded by the gruesome sight of multiple dead female bodies maimed beyond recognition, skinned. You had the propensity of attacking any female within a 30-meter radius around you. Tests had shown this radius was entirely based on location rather than sight, and any female employee was forbidden from entering your containment area, as you are quite vicious and unrelenting. Males, meanwhile, were safe. You either didn't react to their presence or became submissive to their commands. Your body was anatomically correct and made out of the soft silicone that exhumed heat. Faint traces of human tissue were discovered on samples of the material, matching with a woman who went missing in 2001 in Philadelphia. Her name had been redacted in the files. You had long blonde hair, which too was a match to the missing woman. Your eyes had been removed by a sharp object, though this didn't change the fact that you had the ability to see. Your teeth were made out of a hard plastic, and your right hand had been removed and replaced by a butcher's knife, taped to where the wrist normally would be located. It was assumed that this had been done by yourself to be more deadly. Your body showed multiple signs of damage by the time you had been contained. Cracks had formed on your legs and arms, as well as multiple dents and missing chunks of plastic. You had been observed devouring synthetic material, which caused a form of regrowth of your damaged parts. You were placed into a standard human containment cell with a reinforced door. The inside decorated like a boutique shop of the same clothing company you had been discovered in. You would stand around dormant in a regular mannequin pose, occasionally walking to a different place and taking on a new one. You are fed once per week in the form of a 10 by 10 by 10 centimeter cube of plastic. Notably, while well fed, you didn't attack female personnel, unless direct eye contact was created. When you had been released by Sebastian, you had followed him, until a female employee got within range of your activation. And ever since eviscerating the unfortunate woman, you had been looking for Sebastian. You had lost him. You blinked, unable to move in your broken state. Your hand uselessly twitched and jolted on the ground, while your limbs tried to move like snakes, but since they weren't connected to your body, it was more like helpless twitching. You were truly stuck. What a pity. You blinked slowly, methodically. You were unable to feel normal feelings, though the closest feeling to a human one was loneliness. Your gaze went left to right, identifying the locations where your parts had been scattered. When suddenly a noise took your attention. Your vision rolled to your right. Through a metal door approached something big. And you blinked, excited. It was Sebastian. After all this time, he had finally found you. Or more, you had found him. Was he even looking for you? The fish creature slithered inside, using his large fish tail. Almost confused, he looked around the room. He had learned by now that re-entering a room he had previously in was dangerous when anything was different. He saw your scattered pieces. With a confused look, he picked up your left hand, and your face turned red. Surprised, he almost dropped it though, as you gripped his in return. With a loud thunk, your hand fell to the floor. "What the hell?" muttered the fishman. That's when he finally noticed your head. "Oh, it's you." He slithered forward, but you opened your mouth, causing your head to jump backwards. The wall dweller. From your position, you could see the thing peeling itself off its hiding spot. And as your head fell to the floor, out of sheer confusion, Sebastian turned his head in just the right moment to spot the wall dweller. The creature stopped moving for a moment as their eyes met. "Ew," was all Sebastian said before quickly slapping the creature with his tail. The monster was taken into the air by the force, crashing into a filing cabinet. You could vaguely see out of the corners of your vision. Almost casually, Sebastian picked the monstrosity up by the throat. Crack! The wall dweller's head fell to the side. And Sebastian just threw the dead thing behind himself, before giving you his full attention. He grabbed you by the hair, holding you up in front of his face. "Did you just warn me?" he asked. You opened and closed your mouth a couple of times. Sebastian had been in the black side for long enough to longer be spared by the supernatural, especially since he was met by it by simply looking into the mirror. But holding up what might as well be a severed head without eyes, seeing it move like it was alive, was making him a little uncomfortable. "Fine," he said after a moment of thoughtful silence. "I'm a fair man. As a reward, I'll put you back together. I was getting bored anyways. Last expendable who entertained me left a few days ago." Carefully, He began picking you up piece by piece, shoving them into the bags attached to his tail. As a gesture of kindness, however, he kept holding onto your hand, which you squeezed tightly. You couldn't see anything during your transport, so this was a great comfort. His bag was too dark, and your mind was too simple to fully grasp the passage of time. It could have been minutes, it could have been hours, but eventually, his hands pulled your head out of the bag. He placed you on a desk, and then began emptying the pieces he had gathered from you. Repairing you was a lengthy process. Glue wouldn't stick to your parts, and would keep you partially paralyzed anyways. So tape it was. Sebastian had only taken the bigger pieces of you, of course, as he didn't see a point in taking small shattered ones. Using one of the regular mannequins from your containment chamber as a blueprint, he put your parts back together. You're lying down like a taxidermied corpse on the operation desk. The problem was that he was unsure whether or not he should feed you plastic or just keep you as a semi-conscious tape mummy. Meanwhile, you just creepily stared back at him. He had by now put all the parts into you. By now, your limbs were back attached. You probably could walk again. His eyes met yours. Your logic and feelings were quite foreign to him and anyone else. After all, you were a violent anomaly. If he fed you, would you attack him? The reality was, you were feeling something humans would describe as undying affection right now. You became obsessed with his touch. The feeling of having parts of you reinserted by him, seeing his face and scales. You wanted to touch him. You wanted him to touch you. Lovingly, sensually. Silently, you stared back at him. Sebastian had found one of the plastic cubes he had been fed when the facility was still functional. His lips moved in thought. And then he rolled his eyes and shoved the cube into your mouth. And the strangest alien feeling overcame him as he watched you eat it. The plastic was, well, plastic. Hard, somewhat heavy. And yet, your teeth slid through it like it was tofu. It was as terrifying as it was interesting. Perhaps an Eldritch curiosity was a good way of describing it. Whenever you swallowed, he readjusted the cube. While you were eating, he could hear the tape's glue move as holes became smaller and parts reattached. Yet once the cube was fully devoured, Sebastian leaned back, crossing his arms. He watched you sit up in a robotic manner. You then began nibbing at the tape, slowly pulling it off, piece by piece. Of course, your body wasn't fully repaired yet, but it felt solid enough to not fall apart without it. Layers upon layers of grey duct tape sticking to your body dropped to the floor, occasionally causing a loud crack when a piece wasn't fully regenerated and just broke off. And after about an hour, you just stood there, unclothed before Sebastian, body riddled with cracks and holes but functional enough, at least to your assessment. Sebastian exhaled. While two of his eyes were focused on your face, his third was ogling the rest of your body. Your first steps were shaky and clumsy, looking more like those of a zombie or someone was badly moving an action figure. Stepping forward towards him. "Well," said Sebastian, a faint blush appearing on his face, "I fixed you. Now you can go." But instead you stumbled, falling against him. His tail twitched threateningly, but that was more of an immediate reaction to being touched. After all, he was used to being attacked. This wasn't an attack. He could feel your broken body against his. It was warm and surprisingly soft. He leaned down to look into your empty eye sockets. Your face never changed emotions. It was impossible to tell what you were thinking at any given moment. He placed a claw under your chin, pushing your head upwards to look at him better. Right. You're trying to get onto me. He had read your files, experiment logs even. And experiment Epsilon-1600 was you in an interrogation chamber locked in for 2 weeks without food. Then an expendable was added. A male, dressed in synthetic fiber clothing. Dormant, you stood there for 5 minutes. And upon animating, you had done things to him that were redacted. No, he was left alive. A little shaken up, maybe. And drained. The addendum of the experiment stated that you were very thankful to being fed. A similar experiment had been planned, but Sebastian caused the containment breach before it could happen. It was essentially doing the same, starving you for 2 weeks and then have a female expendable be sent in. But instead of wearing plastic clothes, she'd be given a feeding cube. The fear behind this was to see if it was possible to make you non-aggressive towards females by having them feed you. It was in this moment that Sebastian realized what was happening here. Unwittingly, he repeated the experiment. He was about to experience what that redaction was. Oh well, being drained in a certain way could be pleasurable. You know, I'd crush you, right? I'm quite heavy. You tilted your head, a strangely expressive way of you saying, I don't care. And without him giving outright consent, you reached for his jacket. You could feel your fingers fiddling with it. And Sebastian sighed, placing a hand on your cheek, cupping your face. You enjoyed his touch, feeling the roughness of the tips of his claws scraping against your plastic. He then closed the distance. His lips touched yours, gently, exploratory, curiously. He wondered about your taste, and he wasn't disappointed. The taste of your flesh was neutral with a slight rubbery feeling. While not pleasurable per se, it wasn't bad either. Sebastian exhaled, his breath brushing over your face. Fine, he thought. He clasped 2 hands on your shoulders while his third rested on your hip, rubbing soft circles over the cracked skin. Passionately he pressed against your fragile body. His grip tightened. A pleasured shiver ran through your body like an electric shock. It was wonderful being touched. Your eyes closed as his tongue pierced through your lips. The inside was surprisingly wet, almost as if you just drank some water and kept some of it in your mouth. It of course tasted like nothing, but the cavern that was your gaping jaw was wonderfully warm and slimy. Sebastian's heart rate increased. This felt so lewd, in a wonderful way. Feeling the soft walls of your mouth. The tips of his claws poked small holes into the silicone-like shell covering your plastic body as he lifted you up. For only a moment you were in the air, but then he slammed you onto the dirty mattress he used for sleep. He shoved his entire body on top of you, pressing you down. Expectantly, you stared up at him.
Just remember, if I end up breaking you, he growled. Sweat ran down his face, his teeth flashed, and he was breathing heavily. A strange wave of aggression was overcoming him. Well, in general, he was a dominant lover. Something about the fact that he could just do whatever he wanted to do to your plastic body was making him very excited. Oh, fuck it. I'll break you again, my little doll, and then I repair you, and then I'll break you again, and you will enjoy it.
Hey, you watched the video until the very end. That's very kind of you. But before I say goodbye, I have to shout out all of my lovely channel members, especially my high-ranking darling stewards, who get a members-only video every month. Join the tier for just $4.99. Anyways, we have Nicolai Hatcher, Maxi Cat, Alison Watkins, Bella Mare, Mystic Jade 111, Giovanna Moretti, Twilight Mia, Angry Boxman, Hella, Anonymous Weep, and Nicodemus D. Thank you for supporting me. Also, thank you to everybody else who is supporting me. You are keeping me alive.